we ready for geometry? I hope so, because this is lesson 1.11 on points, line segments, lines, and rays. Here is your math message today. I want you to list 3 places where geometry can be found in our world. And we're going to compare those when you come to class. We're going to take a look at your SRB to find some real places where we find geometry. And if you're not sure what geometry is, think about shapes, lines, rays, and things like that. Now your vocabulary today, I thought it might be a little bit easier if we actually draw a picture of each one of the words that I have shown here. So in your vocabulary section of your notes, you're going to write the word. So for example, if I bring up line, so we're going to put that in the column where you have the vocabulary word, and then where it has the definition, you're actually going to draw a picture. So our picture of a line would look like this. And you, of course, are going to use a straight edge. I can't use one on my screen, but I can do my best to draw a line. So as you can see, a line has arrows at both ends, which tells me that it goes on for infinity and beyond. So it never ends, going both directions. Our next word is a line segment or line segments. And line segments do have endpoints, which we're going to get to here. So that means that I have what some people call a dot, right? But that's going to be my endpoint. And then I have another endpoint. And usually they are labeled with some letters of some kind. So we might have an A here and a B here. So that would be a line segment. Now, as I stated a minute ago, we have end point. And an end point, of course, would be this right there at the very end of that line segment. So an end point basically would be the end of my line segment. That brings us to points. And points can be any place on a line. So for example, if I have a line, within that line, I could have hundreds or thousands of points. Okay, all of these would be points. All of them would make up that line. So believe it or not, every single one of those points are connected and they make up that line. So points are within a line, inside a line, okay? All right, we have lots of vocab today. So parallel lines is what we're going to look at next. So let me get some of these other words out of the way for now. So parallel lines would be, of course, more than one. So I could have parallel lines that run along side by side like this, and they never cross. That's why they're parallel. So they could go this direction, they could go this direction, they could go this direction, or they could go this direction. Just as long as they are never going to cross, they would be considered parallel. When we talk about parallel rays, we haven't really talked about a ray yet, so I'm going to move that up here. So a ray is similar to a line, but it has an end point, and then it travels in one direction only forever and ever and ever. So we could have a ray going to the right, to the left, up or down, diagonally. It can go all different directions, but remember it has an end point. And usually those have labels as well. So we could have ray A, okay? Then And that brings us to parallel rays. So just like our lines, we can have parallel rays that run along each other and never cross. Those would be parallel. So they can be diagonal like these up here. They can go to the left or to the right, just like a parallel line. And that brings us to a line segment, which we had earlier when I said segment, right? So line segment, just to refresh your memory, looks like this. A line segment can be inside of a line. So for example, if I look up here at this line, I could have a line segment inside my line that would have a name. Okay, so next we're going to talk about a plane. And no, I'm not talking about the kind that fly in the sky. The reason I bring that particular word up is we just need to remember that it is a flat surface. So you could have some of those line segments or parallel rays within the same area or the same plane or flat surface, and they're never going to cross. So what is that word called when they actually do cross? That means that they intersect. So we could have two lines that actually intersect. That means they cross. They are not parallel. And they can cross anywhere. So that would be an intersection, or we could say that the line AB intersects with line CD if they had names or letters on them. Okay, so let's say that your problem asks you to draw a line segment. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is start with a point. You'll take your ruler, and actually you'll start with 2 points. And then you'll take your ruler and you'll connect those 2 points. And then, of course, a lot of times your problems are going to ask you to label them. So it might say, draw a line segment CD. So then you would label 1 point C, 1 point D. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can write this. If it asks you to name the line segment, then you could write out the words line segment CD. You could write out the shortcut method, which would be this. That says the same thing as the first one. The symbol means line segment CD. Now, can we flip that around and call that line segment DC? And the answer would be yes. Okay, so this would be a line segment. So the directions might ask you, draw a line segment, label it CD. You would draw that picture. If you were given that line segment, they might ask you to name the line segment. So you could write out in word form line segment CD. You could also write out in word form line segment DC, flip them around. Or you could use the shortcut with the symbol at the top of the letters, line segment CD or line segment DC. Now, if your directions said draw ray AB, you're going to draw an endpoint, and then you're going to use your ruler just to extend that out and put your arrow. You would put an A here, and then you would put a point down here somewhere before your arrow, and this would be ray AB. Now when we name a ray, we always start with the end point, not the end that has the arrow. Okay, you could also write it out like this, ray AB. We could even call it ray A. Okay, so that would be a ray. Now, what happens if you're asked to draw a line, sorry. So with a line, we know that that's made up of infinite points, but we're just going to go ahead and make a line with our ruler, put our arrows at both ends, and let's say that we're going to call it X, Y, Z, and we're going to put a point where each of those letters are located. Now, we could call this in word form line X, Y, Z. We could name it line like this, X, Z, or line Z, X. Okay, you can kind of see how that works. Now let me ask you this question. Is it ever possible to draw all of a line? No, it is not. How about, is it ever possible to draw all of a line segment? The answer would be yes to that question. What about all of a ray? Think about that. All of a ray. We know a ray goes on forever in one direction. Not the band, but one direction. And that means that no, we could not draw all of a ray. So these are some practice problems similar to what you will have to do when you are given directions to draw one of those. So now it's your turn. For Ticket to Group today, I'm going to give you a few problems to do on your own where you're asked to draw and label line segments, lines, and rays. So the first problem, I want you to draw and label line segment, let's call it FG. Okay, so that's your first problem. Second problem, I want you to draw and label ray L T. Okay, and the last one, draw and label, which one have we not done? Line, let's call it CD. Okay, so make sure that you draw and label all of those correctly. And make sure you bring those to class with your notes. And then the other thing that you need to remember is your required question about this lesson. Remember, it's something that you do not know the answer to. So here's a summary of what we have done today. We've learned how to identify parallel lines, rays, line segments, points, and lines. We've learned what is meant by intersection. Remember, that's when they cross or run into each other. And we've learned how to give alternate names for rays, line segments, and I repeated rays there. That should be lines. Okay? Bye-bye. I'll see you in class.